Hey everyone, you are watching the next episode of Everything I Like Gets Cancelled. This is the show where I talk about things from my childhood or not so distant past, things that have been canceled, closed down, discontinued, or are just otherwise hard to get or watch. In this episode, I'm talking about something that means a lot to me. It meant a lot to me as a kid when I was enjoying it, and it still means a lot to me now because it had a very large impact on my life. And I think once I say what I'm talking about, I think many of you will feel the same way. That thing that I'm talking about is a TV show, and that TV show is Wishbone. If you are continuing to watch this, you have either heard of Wishbone or, like me, are a huge fan of Wishbone. So I won't go too into what Wishbone was about. But basically, Wishbone is a show in which a teenage boy called Joe has a dog that's a Jack Russell Terrier called Wishbone. And Wishbone is a normal dog to his human owner, but he in his mind is a voracious reader, and he reads all these books, and every episode is Wishbone taking a situation from his owner Joe's life and applying it to a book. And he kind of tells a very condensed cliff notes version of what the book is to the viewers of the TV show. And in each book, Wishbone kind of puts himself as the role of the protagonist. So you get to see the book play out as Wishbone responds as a character in the book. And Wishbone also narrates all of the action in the books. Wishbone was a great show, and it came out in 1995 when I was 3, but even then I was so interested in the show. And I think something that I really liked even as a 3-year-old up until when I was 7, 8, 9, even a little older than that, was that the books that they talked about, they did a really good job about bringing some adult source material, just books like The Count of Monte Cristo, into a way that they didn't dumb anything down in the show. They presented it in a way that was both faithful to the book and the original source material, but just presenting it in a way that kids and adults both like. Like, this was actually one of the few shows that I could watch with my entire family, and everyone seemed to like it. There was just something in the show for everyone. Obviously, for me, as a young child at the time, I liked the dog, but as I got older, I started to like other parts of the show. It was just that wonderful of a show. I remember so many things about Wishbone. It's hard to only choose 3, so I may go a little beyond my typical 3 things I remember. But here are a few things I remember about the show Wishbone. The way an episode of Wishbone was structured was really, really fun. It's something that I'll remember. So something specifically would happen to Wishbone's human owner, Joe. And Joe was like one of the nicest guys ever. And he played basketball, and he lived with his mom. And his dad had passed away prior to the start of Wishbone. So Joe would kind of go through different things with his friends or with his school. Or also Joe's mom sometimes would be having an issue, and Wishbone would be like, that reminds me of one of my favorite books. That book is, and then the tale would unfold from there. And that was just something that I'll always remember, is Wishbone always had a way to relate whatever was happening in human world into a book oftentimes from the past. Like, some of these books that they were talking about written decades ago, I don't think they ever covered anything modern. I might be wrong about that, but what I remember is, the Romeo and Juliet, Ivanhoe. I don't remember anything from this decade, or obviously not the decade that we're in now, but from the 80s, 90s, even a little bit earlier. It all seemed to be kind of older classic literature that they were covering in Wishbone. I remember 2 episodes of Wishbone very, very vividly, which I think is a testament to how good Wishbone was, because I was watching the show as like a 4 or 5-year-old, and that I remember these shows so vividly, versus I don't even remember the name of my, kindergarten teacher, but I remember these episodes because they were so good. One episode I really remember was this one. I watched it with my whole family. That might be why I remember it, but it was the Phantom of the Opera episode of Wishbone. So the premise, if I'm remembering correctly, the premise was that Wishbone was following Joe around, and Joe's mom either worked or volunteered for the town library. And Joe's mom was getting a lot of recognition for this new computerized catalog system that she helped install at the library. And as soon as this catalog system gets installed, weird things start happening at the library, like books are being stolen, or just like the lights aren't working. Things are just kind of going haywire. And in typical Wishbone fashion, Wishbone kind of jumped up and was like, "This reminds me a lot of a book I love, The Phantom of the Opera." Wishbone did a great job at retelling The Phantom of the Opera, especially considering the fact that this was a 20 to 23-minute kid show. They did a great job at retelling Phantom of the Opera, and one of the cutest parts about the show is that Wishbone plays a role in all of the retelling. So he not only is a narrator, he dresses up in costume. So this dog is in a costume, and he, in this episode called Panton at the Opera, he wore a little cape and a little hat and was very debonair because he played Raoul, which is the main character's love interest, and Christine as the main character. I guess technically the Phantom is the main character, but that's another story. So, and he was just so cute, kind of going from here to there with his little costume on, and every episode he dresses up in costume, and it's really, really an awesome way to present each story. Wishbone also had a Halloween episode that I remember clear as day, even though I think it was maybe 1997, 1998 when this came out. I think I was about 5 or maybe 6, but it was about the legend of Sleepy Hollow. I think this was a 2-part episode because I remember it being longer than a typical episode is. And in real world, Joe and his friends, he had 2 best friends, they were competing in some type of Halloween scavenger hunt in town, and the end of the scavenger hunt took place in this house in town that everyone's like, "Oh, that house is haunted and kind of scary." And Wishbone again kind of jumped in and was like, "This reminds me of a story that is classic and scary, and everyone loves it, and it's the legend of Sleepy Hollow." And he does a retelling of the legend of Sleepy Hollow where he is Ichabod Crane, and he, as a little dog, he has these little glasses that's attached to his head. He's so cute. I remember that episode specifically because it was really scary, and I remember being scared of the episode. It was very tense, and there was just some creepy things that happened in it. Like I remember the whole Halloween scavenger hunt was so well put together that even I, as a viewer, I was 5 years old, I was like, this is so creepy. And then the story of Sleepy Hollow is creepy. I think that was actually the first place I heard about that story was through Wishbone. Another thing I remember about Wishbone was that Wishbone was more than a show. I mean, Wishbone really extended into, there was just a lot of merchandise. It was something that almost to an Arthur level. There were Wishbone, in the early 90s, there were Wishbone shirts, hats, backpacks. I definitely had a Wishbone shirt, and when I was about 4 or 5, I had to have minor surgery, but surgery nonetheless, and my family gave me a Wishbone stuffed animal at the end, which was like so cool. It was like a full-size Wishbone, and I just remember like was inseparable from that thing. I just loved Wishbone, and it had a brown collar that had the tag Wishbone on it in the Wishbone font from the TV show, and it looked exactly like Wishbone. I remember Wishbone kind of phasing out of just being on the television regularly throughout the later 90s, and then by the early 2000s, I just remember it was like almost impossible to watch Wishbone. Wishbone only lasted itself about 2 seasons, and I remember really missing the show when there were just no new episodes. I really wanted to find out what was happening with Joe. I just thought the characters were all really interesting. I remember after Wishbone, I really got heavily into Arthur, and I watched Arthur even when Wishbone was on, so I just kind of switched totally over to Arthur. I'm a huge Arthur fan. Arthur is still making new episodes, which I'm happy about because I think Arthur is one of the best shows ever. Another show that was made that kind of tried to replace Wishbone was Sagwa, the cat show. And I liked Sagwa. I've seen a few episodes, but I've always been more of a dog person. So for me, Wishbone all the way. I think Wishbone was so popular by me and other people that I know is the fact that it was actually a show that everyone could enjoy. I remember distinctly watching it with my family, and I watched very few shows that every single person in my family would like. There was something in it for everyone, and the episodes really reached a wide audience, whether you liked reading, if you liked storytelling done well, if you liked the background plot with Joe and his mom. There are so few shows now that appeal to such a wide range of audience. They're either for young children or teens. Everything seems very segmented now. There are few shows that I think can really extend to such a big group like Wishbone did. Wishbone is just one of the best shows ever, and I do think it gave me an appreciation for books and for reading. A lot of people my age or around my age group will credit Harry Potter with kind of getting them to read and getting interested in reading. For me, it was Wishbone because all of what Wishbone was, encouraging people to read, encouraging people to get books and to read stories and to tell stories. And that was kind of the first character that I remember really sparking an interest in me in reading. And I love Wishbone. Wishbone is actually really hard to find now. A lot of the other shows and things I talk about on this particular show, like Reunion, for example, that I had my first episode on, you can find a whole bunch of episodes on the internet, and it's hard to find good quality Wishbone episodes on the internet. I even looked into buying Wishbone on DVD because I was that interested in seeing Wishbone again. And not all the episodes were ever released on either VHS or DVD. So it's really hard to find, and I did find about 4 episodes of Wishbone available in a DVD, so 4 episodes all in one DVD of Wishbone, and I was going to buy it, but it's over $100 to buy. So I did not buy it because more than $100 seems like that's like $25 per episode, which I'm not saying Wishbone is not worth it, but I just don't know if I can buy it. With all of that said, did you like Wishbone when you were growing up? If so, comment below and let me know what your favorite episode is. I would love to hear more. I know there are a lot of Wishbone fans out there. Wishbone is actually one of the few shows that when I talk to people saying I was going to cover it for my show, people were like, oh yeah, Wishbone was really good. It was actually nice to get a positive response to an episode topic instead of blank stares, which is what I usually get. This has been Everything I Like Gets Canceled. If you like this show, more episodes are coming, so you can subscribe to my channel if you want to get updated on when the next episode will be released, or you can just keep checking out all my other videos to stay up to date with what I'm doing. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you soon.